Welcome to Poker Face Radio. I'm your host, Trevor Junt. In this podcast episode, I was able to speak to two poker experts that I know. They may not call themselves experts, but in my 7 years of playing poker with different groups, there is no one that I've found that are better than these two. Today I brought in Ryan Hibbs and Barry McEachen. Each have been playing poker for a bit over 20 years. I talked to them about their experiences playing poker and went deep into different strategies that they employ while playing. I asked them how they count their odds and how they play with those certain odds. We talked about how to stay sharp in the world of poker, how psychology plays in. We went into detail about how to improve your poker game and the communities that they have built from the game of poker. Now, I'm no expert, but I'm not new to poker either. I've been playing since I was about 16 years old, and I used to play every weekend with my best friends from my hometown. Ironically enough, two of my best friends that I play with are sons of each Ryan and Barry. Ryan sort of taught me how to play and introduced me to the game of poker. I immediately fell in love with the game and have been playing it since, now being 23. I both won a lot of money and lost a lot of money in the meantime, but it's become one of my favorite hobbies to do with friends or strangers alike. I will make it clear that Poker Face Radio is not great content if you've never played poker before and don't know anything about it. You may pick up on a few topics that may pique your interest. However, I would call this episode for people who are a bit more familiar with the game or are veterans. When I talked to Ryan first, I asked him about his strategy when it comes to playing in tournaments, something that he is well versed in.
In tournaments, the thing that you always got to keep in mind is that if you go broke, you're out. And so you got to protect your chip stack. You can't go broke if you want to win the tournament. And so that will most of the time decide for you what kind of strategies you're going to use depending on the size of your chip stack. So at the beginning of a tournament, you can usually be fairly aggressive. You can try to chip up because everybody's chip stack is the same. There's nobody that is a huge chip leader that can bully you with a bigger chip stack. And you can just play poker and try to accumulate chips. As the tournament goes on, if you are short stacked, you're going to be sitting there folding hand after hand after hand, waiting for a decent hand that you might have to push all in with, or hope for some action so that you can double up. If you're the big stack, you can start pushing people around. You can raise and you can check raise and you can do things like that to push people around and make it expensive to play hands so that people have to think twice about getting into a hand with you because they know it's going to be expensive. And if they don't have a good hand, they won't want to play it. So there's a lot of different ways to get through a tournament. You almost always need a certain amount of luck. There's just, depending on the size of the tournament, there's almost no way to get through a tournament without a little bit of luck. But there's a lot of things that you can do to help yourself as well.
When I first called Barry, we had to reschedule our meeting because he was playing in a poker tournament in Vegas. He ended up getting second place in the tournament too. When we discussed strategy, Barry said that you can't play the same strategy in the same game. He said if you're going to sit down and play a normal game, which might last 6 to 8 hours, you have to use multiple different strategies.
It's all different. You can't play the same strategy even in one game because, if you're playing for 6 to 8 hours, if you do the same things over and over again, people are going to pick up on everything you're doing. Play conservative, play aggressive, gotta bluff, gotta get lucky, there's, get a slow play sometimes or real aggressive.
Now, there's a lot of math when playing poker, though it should be said that a lot of people play by feel. Both Barry and Ryan express it's important to know the basics around the math that's done while playing poker, if you want to stay consistently competitive. Ryan said knowing what choice mathematically improves your hand gives you a playing advantage that you should use often.
I think every poker player needs at least a basics of the math around poker, the ability to understand, all right, what are the chances of my hand improving? What are the percentages of my hand against any two cards? what are the percentages of my hand against the range of hands that I think my opponent has. And once you've kind of established those in your mind and you know what's going on, now you can make decisions on this is a mathematically good option if I raise or if I fold or if I check or any of the, if I'm going to check raise or, should I have not even been in this hand from the start? And that, all of these things come into play at different times. And it's never bad to know the math around the situation.
One thing that most people struggle with is the psychology of poker. Trying to read other players to see what's going on when they're playing against you. Barry is a world-class reader of people. He said he uses this more than strictly doing the math.
I read players more than you play your hand, but you got to, evaluate around the table and, you'll know if somebody's a tight player, if somebody's loose, reckless, we'll make calls that, might be questionable, the telltale is, let's gamble. I'm just here to gamble, and just, that means they're just chasing whatever. Hopefully they could have ace four, whatever. And just because they have an ace, they're going to call, hoping to catch. And those are the type of players that if you're going to get in a hand with them, you need to get it in for all the money so you can get them out. You want to try and get it to where you're playing one player and one player only. Everybody's sizing you up as much as you're sizing everybody else up at the table. And, it takes a few hands of people, really good players maintain the same emotion, same demeanor, same betting patterns. Like when I play against, younger guys, like you guys that are learning and different things, there's certain things that you guys will do that I can pick up on that, tells me where you're at. Like here's a good example of one. If we're playing and just looking at your cards in your hand, if you just look at them real quick and snap them back down, that means I know you at least have a pair or ace king or something really good. If you stare at your cards for more than 1 or 2 seconds, I know that you're like, okay, I can make hand A, B, or C out of this. And think about it. It's all, so, that's one of the biggest reads that I look for is, if people change how they look at their cards while they're playing.
When Barry told me he mostly plays by reading people, it truly blew my mind. Because one of, if not the best player I know, did not play the way I thought the game was supposed to be played. When I looked at poker, I looked at it as a math game first, and then reading people. But for Barry, it was different. He did go to clear up that this is just the tip of the iceberg for his playing style and his techniques, and there's a lot more tight technique connected. But he gave some great examples on how he reads certain people and how he plays against them.
I'm a people person, and I'm really, I try to be in tune to if people have a quick fuse, if people that get on tilt, how well they handle a winning hand and a losing hand determines the type of player you play. If you're playing against a good player that will, you beat them, you had a better 2 pair than they had, or it was a close hand, or they get you by 1. It's, oh, wow, good hand, nice job, and just say, well, in your mind, you're thinking, okay, you got me on that one, but, I still got a chance next time. And, instead of guys that get mad when, you get a better hand than they do and they slap their cards down, or, just, you've seen how people, wear their emotions on their sleeve when they're playing, and that's the best players to play against because you can read them like a book.
I had Ryan explain the rules of 4s and 2s. It's a somewhat simple way to do math to figure out the best outs for your hand to improve. This helped me get better at playing poker, and I truly believe it could help just about anyone get better at the game.
I've seen a couple different explanations of this online. So, if you go looking for it, you may find a different explanation to this, but this is the way I learned it. So the rule of 4 and 2 is an easy way to calculate the percentage chance that you have of your hand improving when the next card comes out. So, but you start after the flop. So if you have pocket kings in your hand and the flop comes out 10-6-5, you only have 2 outs. So you count up how many outs you have to improve your hand. Well, the only 2 cards in the deck that can improve your hand are the 2 kings that are left in the deck. And so you would take the 2 outs times 4, and you have a roughly an 8% chance of improving your hand when the next card comes out. And you can use that information to decide if you're going to call a bet, or if you're going to bet, or if you're going to check, or if you're going to fold based on whatever's happening on the table. And so if you stay in the hand and the turn comes out, and let's say it's a jack, so your hand still hasn't improved, but you still have 2 outs. Well, now you take 2 times 2, 2 outs times the rule of 2. And so now you have roughly a 4% chance that the next card is going to improve your hand. And it's important to understand that this doesn't mean it's going to give you the winning hand. It means that it's that percent to improve your hand. You might already be holding the winning hand. Pocket kings on a Jack 10 8-6 board might be the winning hand. Might not. I don't know. Did you raise pre-flop? I don't know what happened before. We're just talking about how to calculate the odds. But that's an easy way to do it. And the numbers aren't exact. Like if you took a calculator to it, the numbers they don't always match up. And the more outs you have, like once you start getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 outs, the numbers start to really get a little distorted. But it's a good way at the table in your head to get a quick idea of what it's going to take to improve your hand.
These men give such insightful information on how to play poker in your next game. Both Barry and Ryan have encyclopedic knowledge for the game, and I give thanks for them for setting aside time for me to teach me as well. They said if you're new to poker, give it a chance too. It has created some great friendships for them, and speaking for myself, it's created some very nice friendships as well. You might not know much what you're doing, but spending hours aside the table talking with your friends or strangers, you're able to build somewhat of a community around you of poker players. People who are inviting and want to learn more about you and spending time together. Ryan runs a poker league with a ton of players in it. Barry is one of them, and he's leading that league. They met playing poker and realized their sons are friends by just talking to each other. The poker community is much more accepting than many think. I have made my own friendship closer to my friends by just sitting around a table and playing for hours on ends. That's the biggest reason I love poker. It's because you can just talk with the people around the table for hours, and that's what makes the game so great. You can spend time with your friends. But I hope you leave this podcast with a bigger knowledge of the game of poker and are now a better player, using these strategies and techniques to become better. Thanks for listening to Poker Face Radio. I'm Trevor Junt.
Sound.com